Last weekend was one to remember as the Queensland Firebirds produced an inspired performance to defeat the Melbourne Vixens, the 2011 premiers dedicating their win to their captain Laura Geitz. There was plenty happening across the Tasman as well, with the Central Pulse claiming an historic victory. The Southern Steel emerged as a genuine finals threat, while the Magic's title defence entered dangerous territory. As I say hello and welcome to Centre Pass, the official video podcast of the ANZ Championship. Dan Ryan here alongside former Australian captain Kath Harby-Williams. And Kath, the big news from last round, the Queensland Firebirds, what a gutsy and courageous effort from the team from Brisbane.
Yes, it's amazing what emotion can do to a side, Dan, but that's been a team that's been travelling quite well. Obviously we know that Laura Geitz lost her father in tragic circumstances, and they really stood up. And you look at their defensive line, we talk about a lot of the stars that play in defence for the Vixens and the Thunderbirds. Messer, McLeod, virtually unknowns. Yes, McLeod's been around for a long time, but they really stood up and did it for their captain. So a terrific performance. And, they're sort of coming in under the radar. When they won that competition, Dan, no one would ever have picked that they would have gone through the season undefeated. They're travelling as nicely now as they were when they won the premiership. So, the Firebirds are right up there.
Absolutely, a memorable victory there from the Queensland Firebirds. Well, let's recap all of the results from round 9 of the ANZ Championship. It started with the Fowler and Brown show, proving to be too lethal as the Steel caused a major upset, defeating the defending champions Magic by 7 goals in Invercargill. Another upset took place in Melbourne, as we mentioned, the Firebirds producing one of the most courageous performances we've seen in the league to beat the Vixens by 11 goals. The Thunderbirds were forced to fight back from a 5-goal deficit deep in the fourth quarter against the New South Wales Swifts, Adelaide winners 50-48. The West Coast Fever kept their finals aspirations alive with a 9-goal win over the Tactics in New Zealand, 64-55. And the Central Pulse, another team fighting for a finals berth, defeated the Mystics for the first time ever with a commanding 63-48 victory. As we take a look at the competition ladder as it stands heading into round 10, and for the first time we have a clear top 4, Kath, but the next 3 teams still very much in the hunt for now.
Yeah, look, the Steel into the 4 at the expense of the Magic, so it's really tight. It's going to be one New Zealand side, I think. I don't think the Fever can quite make it. But if you look at the competition, the last match of the round is the Pulse versus Steel. So if the Magic lose a couple of games, say to the Firebirds and the Vixens, then we are down to the wire. And that's what's been great about this competition. I think almost every year there's been one game at the end of the season that has dictated the final 4. So, tight one, tighter than ever, some of the players say.
Yeah,
so it's pretty exciting.
Certainly set for a cracking finish. Well, let's turn our attention now to round 2, another full round of the competition. Round 10 starting, of course, on the Gold Coast. It is the Queensland Firebirds hosting the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic. Firebirds coming off an 11-goal win to the Vixens. The Magic, that shock loss perhaps to the Steel. This is season on the line for the Magic. Must win or it's goodbye for the year.
Yeah, I think so. They really need to knock off one of the big guns, and this is a massive opportunity for them. But they don't travel well. We know that New Zealand sides struggle in Australia, and the Firebirds, as I said, are travelling nicely. They've got one of the best attacking lineups in the competition. Medhurst and Aitken are just getting better week in, week out. So that's where the test is, I think. The Magic, De Bruyn and Kopua, they've been playing okay, but not consistently enough. So they really need to stand up to get their team going, because I think they'll score enough goals. It's just a matter of reducing the amount of goal that the Firebirds put through the hoop.
A lot of talk about the Queensland Firebirds mid-court. One of the revelations has been Kim Ravilion. Probably the biggest test of her life on Sunday when she comes up against Laura Langman, arguably one of the game's greats. How do you see that one shaping up?
Well, I can tell you that Langman makes you earn your money. She really has a bad game, and she's a great contributor. Defensively, she's always been good, but over the past few years, she's really developed her attacking game. So Ravilion, she'll be in the game. It's whether or not she can maintain that consistency, because I'd hate to see the number of Ks that Langman puts out on court, because she's a real workhorse and she sets up the play defensively for the Magic. So Ravilion will really need to be on song, particularly in attack, because she needs to keep giving her team opportunities. But Ravilion, a star of the future, and this is a great test for her, as you said.
The Firebirds looking to consolidate a top 2 spot as well. Our next game we want to talk about, the New South Wales Swifts up against the Northern Mystics. It's 9th place 10th. So the last 2 on the ladder going head to head. The Swifts excellent for 58 minutes against the Thunderbirds. The Mystics losing to the Pulse by 15 goals for the first time in their history. This is a tough game for both sides. They'll both be desperate to win, but probably the Swifts ahead here based on current form.
Yes, well, I was going to say, if you said that to me 2 weeks ago, I probably would have gone for the Mystics. They're a team that can upset sides, and the Swifts weren't travelling very well, but they really stood up against the Thunderbirds. It was only the Thunderbirds' experience in the end that got them over the line. You look at the defence of the Mystics. they concede 69 goals on average, so they're lucky they're coming up against a side that doesn't score a lot of goals. The Swifts only average 49, so that goes to tell me whoever wins that battle will win the game. But I just think the Swifts at home, and with the current form that they've got, that they'll win that one.
Nice work with the stats there, Harbs. Another big news coming out of Auckland, of course, is that Debbie Fuller has been reappointed. She was the head coach there last year, but she's now been reappointed for 2013 to be in charge of the Mystics.
And that will help the Mystics, as they'll sort of let go of this season almost. And we saw that with the Swifts last week. They can't make the finals now, so they relaxed and played well against the Thunderbirds. I think the same cycle will occur for the Mystics, so that will give them a chance.
Moving on to our next game, the Central Pulse, currently ranked 7th, up against the 6th place West Coast Fever. That game is on Sunday in Wellington. Both teams winners in round 9. This is almost an elimination semi-final again. Two teams fighting for their lives in this one.
Yeah, the Fever must win. If they lose, they are absolutely gone and have no chance. I think these teams match up well. You know, you look at the Fever attack, Bassett and Cox. Hopefully Cox will play. She suffered an ankle injury last week. The Pulse, you know, they're travelling well. Thwaites is scoring a lot of goals for their side. But the key matchup for me in that game is Simmons, who I think is vital to the chances of the Fever, against Jolene Henry, who played her first full game last week. Hopefully she can recover. Whoever gets on top of that battle, I expect will win the game.
Certainly a big game there in Wellington. The Fever up against the Central Pulse. The next game we want to talk about, Monday night netball, the Canterbury Tactics hosting the Adelaide Thunderbirds. This game being played in Dunedin. Of course, still a home game for the Tactics. Thunderbirds, of course, coming off that 2-goal win against the New South Wales Swifts. The Tactics only a 9-goal loss to the Fever, but only the second game too that the Thunderbirds are going to New Zealand for this season.
Yeah, but I guess you eliminate almost a home ground advantage for the Tactics because they didn't have a venue available. So as you said, they're playing in Dunedin. I think that takes away any chance that the Tactics have. Every week we talk about Harton being the key, but the stats show that she is certainly the key. And she's up against Shani Layton, who's in the form of her life, and she'll give Harton a run for her money. And defensively, they're just giving their side so many opportunities. The only stat for the Thunderbirds that I guess is a bit down is the number of goals they scored. So that tells me they're making a lot of errors, but they've got such a superb defensive team that they keep giving the shooters chances. So that's an area I think against the Tactics that the Thunderbirds will need to work on, but I expect the Thunderbirds to be way too good in that one.
Final game of the round we want to talk about is a big one. It's a top 4 clash. The Melbourne Vixens, currently 3rd, hosting the Southern Steel, who have jumped into the top 4 for the first time this season, looking good as well. Vixens coming off an 11-goal loss to the Firebirds. The Steel a 7-goal win against the Magic. The interesting stat though, the Steel have never won in Australia, but this game is seeing the strength of the Vixens go up against the strength of the Steel. It should be a beauty. Oh,
I can't wait. And so much riding on. Again, the Vixens, they want to finish in the top 2 now. The Steel want to make the top 4. And every week we talk about Fowler, and we will again because she's absolutely outstanding, but up against a combination that are very smart. Mentor one-on-one won't match it with Fowler, but Chatfield will help her out. But the key for the Vixens is they lost their way against the Firebirds. The midcourt weren't defending as well as they could, so therefore there was an easy route into Medhurst and Aikens. So they really need to stand up because we all know once Brown gets it in her hands, a one-on-one situation, and Fowler is way too big, way too good and way too strong. So it's the midcourt defensively of the Vixens that really need to show their wares, and I think they will, because McInnes has come out during the week saying that they lost their way, they lost their focus, and their strategy wasn't implemented. So I think we'll see a different Vixens lineup.
Southern Steel probably the biggest team that are flying under the radar at the moment. If they get into the finals, they can do some damage because they have Fowler. How confident would that group be coming into this game against the Vixens?
Oh, absolutely. You know, they've won 4 in a row, I think it is, and 5's the most that they've ever won. So they are travelling really nicely. But I think they don't just want to be a team in the finals, Dan. They want to be a team that's competitive, so they must win in Australia before the finals come around. Otherwise, I don't give them much chance. So, you know, they're a team that can upset the Vixens. The Vixens weren't great against the Firebirds, so they're a little bit vulnerable. Vixens at home, though, just, you know, maybe swings it their way.
Looking forward to that one. The Vixens hosting the Southern Steel on Monday night. That is all the games for round 10 of the competition. Time now to do our tips. Kath, I'm going to let you go first. Take us through it.
Okay, Firebirds Magic. I'm going for the home sides mostly, except there's one obvious one that I won't. So it's the Firebirds over the Magic, Swifts over the Mystics. Pulse too good for the Fever. Thunderbirds against the Tactics, was not really a home game for the Tactics, so I am sort of going for the home sides. And Vixens, this was the one that there are a few question marks. Vixens over the Steel, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset.
Nicely done, Harbs. I'm going the exact same way. So the Firebirds over the Magic to end their chance for defending their title, I think. The Swifts too good for the Mystics. The Pulse over the Fever. That should be a tight one though, but Jolene Henry back full-time is a real plus for the team from Central Pulse. The Thunderbirds too good for the Tactics, and the Vixens to beat the Steel based on the fact that it's played in Melbourne. If it was in Invercargill, maybe a different story. Well, that's all we have time for this week's episode of Centre Pass Extra. Thank you, Catherine, for your insights once again and your brilliant stats this week. You're really doing a great job on the show. Make sure you jump onto the ANZ Champs website to check out all of the broadcast details for round 10 of the competition. Until next week, goodbye for now.